Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 93 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the beautiful, chilly, and fall-like confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and as well as on Substack. Hopping into this episode, guys. This episode is going to be dedicated to Week 11 NFL recap, touching on all the dope-ass games that were coming on this weekend. Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Chargers, Packers, Bears. I even did that sorry-ass Monday night game, which was Texans and Cowboys. And it was a sorry-ass game because of the Texans. Obviously, a sorry-ass game because of the Cowboys. But I'll touch on that in a little bit. But hopping right into this episode, we're going to touch on what I think is the game we all really wanted to talk about first, which was Chiefs-Bills. Bills were able to pull it out 30-21. Another regular season victory for the Bills. Bills are now 4-1 against the Chiefs within the past five meetings of the regular season. I got to give the Bills credit. The Bills, they started off this game, driving downfield, quick, machine-like. Missed the extra point by Tyler Bass, but still got downfield. Chiefs did the same, responded. It looked like it was going to be, it felt like a playoff game watching it. I mean, honest to God truth, for as far as a regular season game goes, it felt like a playoff-like atmosphere, the moment, the magnitude for the Bills. I'll touch on the Chiefs in a second, but I got to give ultimate credit. You were down Dalton Kincaid, you were down Keon Coleman, and you were still able to pull it out with the collection of receivers, Shakir and those guys. Gotta give Buffalo credit. Like I said, Amari Cooper has definitely been a good trade pickup asset for them. He's definitely come in and helped. Curtis Samuel's been a good offseason acquisition for them. Gotta give these guys credit. Ultimately, it was, like I said, it was interesting to see how they were able to push the ball down the field. They kept running the ball, but they also made sure they were diversifying in the passing game, so Buffalo was there. Josh Allen is just fucking magnificent. I mean, we're just running out of adjectives for him. Not the stupendous passing game, but the game that was needed for the Bills to win this game. 27-40 passing, 262 yards, one touchdown, one shitty interception where you kind of felt like, okay, him and Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes had a shitty one as well. He's had a lot of them this year. I'll touch on that in a second too, but Josh Allen, more or less, they both threw a shitty interception. He had that, but masterful game. Patrick Mahomes, I love how Pat has played. It's been a weird year for Pat Mahomes. Let me just say that for lack of better words. Statistically speaking, this has possibly been his worst season. And I don't even think that's a stretch to say that. It's been his worst year. In this game, he was 23 of 33, efficient, 196 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. He was sacked twice as well, so that didn't help. That left tackle issue is definitely a problem for them. But he's not playing well. And this was something that was happening against them, late last year, this time last year. They were not playing well. Now, ultimately, didn't mean anything in the end. In the end game, they wound up winning the Super Bowl, so it was like, But right now, they don't, this was needed for Buffalo and Kansas City for multiple reasons. I'll touch on Buffalo first. Buffalo needed this psychologically because I feel like, especially with them now having a plethora of young players, having a younger cast of guys going against his Kansas City teams, some, still some of the last vestige from a few years ago, but a lot of youth. It's important to go in there with new blood and beat a team like this. Gives you confidence going into the regular season. Less pressure, for lack of better words, mentally. You even kind of feel like Buffalo, past couple of years, they've hung around that 1-2 seed, either been the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed, haven't really closed the deal in the postseason. And that's ultimately what I'm going to get to. Going into this game again, Kansas City, didn't do everything great, turnover. They ran the ball horribly, 17 carries, 78 yards. Kareem Hunt accounted for 60 of those yards, so that's not great. That's not great by any stretch of the imagination. Receiving core wise, 23, 196, 3 touchdowns. However, Travis Kelce, 2 catches, 8 yards, not great. You'll definitely see a different Travis Kelce in the playoffs. And again, this game came down to Josh Allen having to make a play late, and he did it. And that's ultimately what got Buffalo to win. But let's be honest. Who are we bullshitting ourselves here? This doesn't fucking matter. This was great that Kansas City lost. Kansas City needed this blood in their mouth. They needed to get this loss out of the way. They needed to experience this. But who the fuck are we kidding? Until Kansas City loses in the playoffs, especially to this team, no one gives a shit. You're 4-1 against them now in the past 5 regular season meetings. What the fuck does that mean? In January, you're 0-3 against them. You suck. You suck against them. They fucking own you. They're in your head. So I'm not really, I wasn't really too sold on all of this. It was a lot of media people out there, talking heads, and narratives being converted and being written out like, this is the key, and Kansas City's now weak. Guys, you said this shit last year. And then you told us how ineffective Josh Allen was late and how bad the Bills were. And Sean McDermott needed to be fired. And he needed to blow up the whole team. Stop the bullshit. Stop the bullshit. Credit to Sean McDermott for having his team prepared. That Bills team only has 2 losses. They're going to win the division. They're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. Again, no Stephon Diggs. Plethora of linemen that are no longer there. Defensive players that are no longer there. They're still in the hunt. Credit a lot of that is Josh Allen, yes. Definitely the running game has been there. Because I'd be remiss to not mention James Cook. James Cook didn't have the greatest game in this game. This was more of a Josh Allen legs game. And sometimes that's needed. You're not always going to have a game where James Cook's going to have 80, 90 yards rushing. But however, the collective 31 of 104, 3 touchdowns. James Cook accounted for 2 of those touchdowns, and they were within short yardage. Gotta give James Cook credit for that. They needed those touchdowns. They needed those points. Josh Allen, he went off. 12 carries, 55 yards rushing. They needed all of that. If I'm Kansas City, I'm wanting more from my wide receiving core. I get it that Hollywood Brown's injured. I get it. What the fuck is D-Hop giving me? 3 catches for 29 yards? Really the first game since the first game he's been there where I'm like, I need more. I need more. Xavier Worthy was your leading receiver, 4 catches, 61 yards. That's good. That's good. But to me, Xavier Worthy doesn't have like spatial awareness or real ball awareness at times. I don't know. It just seems that way maybe, but that's just the case. Justin Watson was your 3rd leading receiver. Noah Gray had 4 catches, 23 yards. This is not getting it done. So this is good. Good win for Buffalo as far as youth and confidence going into the rest of the regular season. This was even more fantastic for Kansas City because they needed this blood in their mouth to recalibrate and get better because, that style of winning that they've been getting away with, barely escaping, trust me, as an Eagles fan that learned last year, playing that type of philosophy will get you beat. You'll be beat in the first or the second round, not expecting to go home that early and going home, and your season's over. And at that point, it's like, So, credit to the Bills. Bills were definitely prepared. Bills had a plan of attack. They were ready for Kansas City, and we'll see how it goes in the postseason because that game definitely is going to dictate playoff seeding. I can guarantee you that game is definitely going to dictate playoff seeding when it's all said and done. And like I said, Buffalo was ready. Next game I want to get into would be the game that I think, and I won't lie to you, I watched this game first out of all the games over the course of the weekend. It was Baltimore versus Pittsburgh because, why the fuck not? It's the AFC North. It's one of the dopest divisions in football, and it's one of the best rivalries in football, one of the most physical games on the docket. And to start the game off, you got Derrick Henry fumbling. You got the crowd already in it in Pittsburgh. They're already chanting and yelling and shit. The game was starting off the way I expected it to usually go. It's weird because if you look at Baltimore, and especially the way the Pittsburgh Steelers have been scoring as of late, you kind of expected a high-scoring football game. You kind of expected 2 teams that were going to divvy up a lot of points and diversify points in different ways. However, the funny thing about this is whenever these two teams play each other, what it usually comes down to is old school AFC North fucking football. Tight ass, I'm running the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust, kicking field goals, get in position, tight play here, a drop there, missed tackle, a fumble, a strip sack, whatever. However it plays out, though, that's usually how it works. And that's what we had. Pittsburgh wins by 2. They win 18-16 against over Baltimore. Baltimore drops to 7-4. Pittsburgh is now 8-2. So kind of, in my opinion, kind of puts Baltimore out of race for winning the division. But the game itself, it seemed like to me that the power run game was something that Pittsburgh was trying to implement early. You see that they had a designed attack, and again, 34 carries, 122 yards as far as the running back room. That's between Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, and Justin Fields. So you definitely see that they definitely wanted to run the ball, control the clock, limit, and you notice this theme: limit the offense, limit how long they'd be out there on the field, limit Lamar's opportunities. That was ultimately the game plan, so I credit them with that. Passing attack wise, Russell wasn't superb. 23 of 36, 205, interception, shitty interception in the red zone. One of those plays where you kind of thought that could swing the game and ultimately just give the Ravens momentum. It wound up not being anything, but it was definitely a bad play by Russell as far as that interception goes. But again, kind of numbers he's kind of ultimately put up this year, in his mediocre, okay games. Also going a step further too, you got to give Baltimore's defense credit. Baltimore's defense was trying to do everything they possibly could to keep this team in the game. They had 4 sacks against Pittsburgh, 7 tackles for a loss. Got to give them that. You even had the interception by Marlon Humphrey in the red zone against Russell. The Baltimore defense did everything they could to keep Baltimore in this game. Baltimore's offense failed this team. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Everybody's going to say, well, what did Lamar do? Lamar was 16 of 33, 207 yards, a touchdown, a pick. The worst he's looked the whole season. Pittsburgh has something against this man. They have tape, they have film, they have a game plan. And it looks like what it is they don't rush him all the way. They rush him enough to force him into the pocket or force him into a decision. He's still Lamar Jackson. He's still fucking amazing. He's still going to make the plays that he needs to make. Sometimes he's going to break loose or contain and make a great throw. But that's the type of pressure you want him to be under. 4 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss. You could definitely assume 4 to 5 of those were against the quarterback. Definitely again in the running game. Got to give Pittsburgh credit. Pittsburgh's looking scary, man. They don't look dominant. They don't look dominant, but then again, no team in the AFC really looks dominant. They just look like a team where their game plan is, if we got to muddy it up, we'll muddy it the fuck up. If we got to win 18-16, we'll do it. If we got to win 34 to 30, we'll do it. Whatever it takes to win the football game, that's what we're going to do. But their game plan ultimately is to have their defense suffocate you through the pass rush and through, turnovers and, opportunistic plays. Justin Tucker. Something's up. Something's up with Justin Tucker. Missed field goal. Definitely has not been himself all year. He's been, a couple kickers throughout the season has been like this, but Justin Tucker has been the poster child for it this year. Those 3 points were tremendous because let's be real, if he makes it, they win the game by 1. Pittsburgh has to then score a touchdown late instead of defending the field late. Crucial points in a game like this. And it's weird because Justin Tucker was an automatic 3 points for so long that we all just took for granted he was always going to make those kicks. He was never going to miss those kicks. He was always going to be in a situation where those kicks were going to be made. And he's missing them this year. And it's something you have to consider going into the postseason. How will Baltimore use that plan of attack going against better teams late? Because if Tucker's missing field goals, or at least field goal attempts, that kind of limits what you can do. And that takes points off the board. So now situations where you may have kicked it, or you may have had confidence to trust your kicker and give him the ball and be like, hey, get us 3 points. Now you're like, shit, do we go for it? Shit, when we score, do we go for 2? Interesting, man. Justin Tucker has just not looked like himself. He has not looked like the kicker that he has lived up to be, the hype he's built for himself, the Hall of Fame resume he's built for himself. And that happens. Guys do go through funks. It's a great chance that he can always bounce back end of this year, postseason, next year. But on this pace that he's at, this is going to cost Baltimore a game, an important game at that. just like it did this past Sunday. Um, it just seemed like I said, looking at it, Pittsburgh just ultimately was suffocating Baltimore. Didn't want Derrick Henry to do a lot. Weren't going to allow Lamar Jackson to do a lot. And again, I credit them because they did everything they were supposed to do. Team-wise, efficient defense. Got to give them credit. Got to give them credit. All right, so looking at the particulars here, third and fourth downs. Third down, 4 of 11 for Baltimore. Third down, 4 of 16 for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was even 0 of 1 on fourth down. What does this game come down to, y'all? What do you think a game like this comes down to? Turnovers. Baltimore had 3, Pittsburgh had 1. And that's the difference. That's the difference. Whether it's a Justice Hill interception, whether it's, guys fumbling, whether it's bad, plays just made in key positions, you cannot win football games like this. You will not win football games playing like that late into January and December, January and February, excuse me. You will not win football games like that. So it's interesting to see. And I mean, again, as I said, Pittsburgh's plan of attack was a run the ball. Time possession, 36 minutes, 22 seconds. Baltimore, 23 minutes, 38 seconds. Pittsburgh had a concerted attack. This is something, there's film now about Baltimore. We have to take this into consideration. If we're saying that they're one of the elite teams and we're watching their defense, who only gave up 18 points, but yet and still couldn't really stop guys when they needed them to, that's something we have to pay attention to. That's definitely something that we have to keep in mind. Because receiving wise, I mean, my God, you had 23 catches, 205 yards. George Pickens had 8 for 89. Your second leading receiver was Darnell Washington, 42 yards receiving on 2 catches. You couldn't stop them from throwing the ball. You couldn't stop them from running the ball. So Pittsburgh, they did exactly what they were supposed to do, especially in a division game. 2 teams that know each other. So credit to Pittsburgh for that. But Baltimore, you got problems. You got problems that you have to address. Your defense is not playing up to par. Your running attack, again, great 19 carries, 124 yards. But you're making turnovers in bad situations. That's what's going to lose you the game. You play like shit like this against Kansas City, and that's what cost you the AFC Championship game. What do you think's going to happen this year if you keep playing like that? Definitely got to address these things. And then, late in the game, it comes down to the 2-point conversion. Play looks discombobulated. Lamar's going one way. I don't know if the ball supposed to go back that way or is one of the receivers, tight ends, supposed to be in the back of the end zone. Either way, it was shitty. It didn't work, and that was pretty much essentially the end of the game. And again, Baltimore lost, 18-16. So Ravens definitely going to have to show up and show improve and stop bullshitting themselves because they're not as efficient as they think they are. They're sexy on offense, but that's about it because defensively, there's a lot to be desired. A lot to be desired. They're not anywhere where they need to be. And it's just crazy to me because, again, though Lamar's in the MVP conversation, though Lamar's made a legitimate case to be MVP, we can't act like that it's all been peaches and cream and that their offense has just been magnificent this year because it really hasn't. There's been times this year where you're just like, okay, still a work in progress. Didn't look like it for a 6-7 game stretch, but you have games like this, it kind of goes. Hopping into the next game is going to be Chicago versus Green Bay. This game was, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, this is fucking heartbreaking. If you're a Green Bay Packers fan like my brother is, this was just, another amusing, heartbreaking, crushing defeat of the Chicago Bears. Green Bay Packers won 20-19. Much tighter game than we all thought it would be initially. The Bears came out and showed fight. Shout out to, Thomas Brown for making sure these guys are prepared and not bullshitting himself, or the team, or, making sure they had a legitimate opportunity to win. But again, for Green Bay, what I like is they kind of realize we got to take the ball out of Jordan's hands a bit. We got to run the ball a little bit more, set up some of these play action opportunities, set up some of these opportunities to complete these down and distance throws, the 5 to 10 to 15-yard throws. And then we hit the shallow crosses and then we hit the deep outs. I just like the plan of attack that what Green Bay had. It was working, especially the rushing attack early on. Jaden Reed's got in the action. He scored. Shout out to Jaden Reed. This guy's been having guys on skates all year. Definitely been an electric player. And Chicago was kind of trying to mix it up as best as they could, trying to, diversify certain things. defensively and offensively. They were even